Welcome to the first ever Netdata Cloud Show. This is Blake, Director of Community over at Netdata. We've got a great show lined up today with an all-star panel to talk about observability. Up first, before we get into that, we've got David on our documentation team who's going to talk a little bit about alerts. So let me turn it over to David. And then once David's done, I will get our very special panel up on stage to cover and talk about observability. Thank you for joining us for our first ever Netdata Cloud Show. And stick around for the end. We'll be taking questions live from the audience that our panel can address.
Thanks, Blake, and thanks everybody for tuning in. This first segment is going to feel to some of you like the coming attractions prior to the main event. But if you stick with me for just a little bit, I think you'll find that it's actually a good illustration of some of the concepts that our panelists are going to speak to. In fact, it's almost serendipitous that Blake chose this week of all weeks to host this incredible panel on observability, as here at Netdata, we're currently implementing a strategy that moves our alerts feature from being a strong monitoring tool to an observability solution. And I think that's a distinction you'll understand more after hearing these panelists. For now, let's just say that Netdata has a lot of alerts. We offer hundreds of them out of the box for our Cloud End agent. User feedback suggests that those alarms can be, well, alarming. Even the most experienced engineer runs into an alert that's confusing sometimes. It's good, yes, when the agent diagnoses a problem. But what happens after the diagnosis? At Netdata, we don't just want to be diagnostic when we have the resources and the knowledge to be more than that. So I got to thinking about the user feedback. In my estimation, as great as our open source agent is, and it's the absolute greatest, maybe our best resource, or at least our best knowledge source, is our community of users and developers. Some of the most intelligent and capable admins, devs, and engineers in the world use Netdata, contribute to its development, and engage with its users in its community, which is why we decided to use that community to enhance our alerts over the upcoming weeks. What you see here is our forthcoming alerts tab layout in our demo cloud space. And I would need the whole session to show off the bells and whistles of the new views, filtering features, but we'll provide all of that to our users in communication and documentation shortly. What I want to show you all today is the new observability strategy we came up with for empowering our users in their troubleshooting once they receive the alarm. Soon, when our users receive an alert, they'll be able to click this button in the UI or a link in the email to open a corresponding post in our user forum. This post will contain background on the conditions and elements related to the alert, but more importantly, it will offer sourced and researched troubleshooting steps for determining the root cause and repairing the issues, even separating these suggestions by operating systems where that's necessary. We have a team of incredible engineers working on collecting this information to build a starting point for our users and hopefully find all the solutions for them, for pretty much every alert we have, which should save a whole lot of hours of panic and frustration. Now, because these are open discussion posts, of course, we want users to use it to their needs. But also, if the user happens to possess enhanced knowledge or an alternative solution or experience, we hope they share that in the live asynchronous discussion for users who eventually hit the same walls to establish a collective observability tool of record. We want to set the example of community troubleshooting here so that it isn't just our tools that make our users' lives easier. It's the strength of all Netdata users moving into an era of high-fidelity, real-time monitoring and troubleshooting made accessible to everyone. So I'm looking forward to getting to talk to some of you in our forums and community channels over the next couple months to talk more about these sort of things. For right now, though, just going to kick it back to Blake, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the panel. Thanks.
And from David, a huge thanks and credit to the team, as you can see on the screen here today. So thanks to them. And without further ado, our observability panel, let me bring them all up onto the stage for you all. Ralph, Boris, and Samir. All right, now that I have you all up here today, thanks for joining us to talk about observability. Let's kick it off and tell everybody a little bit about yourself. We'll go to Samir, Boris, and then Ralph.
Hello, everyone. I'm Samir Behara. I'm based out of Birmingham, Alabama. I work as a platform architect at EBSCO. I'm also a Microsoft MVP. I enjoy working on the cloud native space and microservices world. So looking forward to this panel discussion today.
Hi there, my name is Boris Zaikin. I am a software and cloud architect at IBM and Nordcloud company. So I have expertise in Azure Cloud, Google Cloud, AWS, and also massive expertise in Kubernetes and monitoring and other system design and infrastructure.
Hi, I'm Ralph from the Netherlands, VP of Technology here at Netdata. I have a background as a software developer with an angle into monitoring logs, metrics, and also messaging systems, particularly XMPP.
All right, thanks so much, Samir, Boris, and Ralph. And kicking it off with our first topic. So we hear a lot of buzz about monitoring these days, observability, that we talk about it so much that people start to get them mixed up and not really understand what the key differences are and where to use them and when to use them. So for the people out there that are kind of maybe newer to the space or really trying to wrap their heads around it, what would you say for the panel are the key differences between monitoring and observability, and where can you really get the best use out of each one of those?
I can start. So I think the first we need to understand what is the where starts observability and where is monitoring. So first of all, I think that observability is describing your system from observability point of view. So it's a metrics, it's a strategy that logs and everything. Monitoring is that it's about tooling. So if you have your observability strategy and metrics gathered, then you can find the proper monitoring and alerting tool. So this is the key difference from my point of view.
Yeah, and I can add to what Boris mentioned. So both monitoring and observability, they go hand in hand, right? So monitoring, I see it as kind of a collection of, say, data, logs, whereas observability is kind of making sense of that collected data. So monitoring is just one aspect, whereas observability is kind of a combination of, say, logs, metrics, traces, and which can provide an actionable insight. So when you have a issue with your system, say monitoring will kind of alert you about the error, but observability kind of steps up and it provides additional details about okay, what the issue is, and it will help you figure out the actual problem and how to fix it.
I agree with the previous speakers here. I want to add here that I also think that observability is about making sense of not just a single metric, but the combination of various metrics and the correlation between them to identify an issue or a condition, and the ability to observe everything as a whole, not just looking at individual metrics, and using that as using these alerts as a starting point for your troubleshooting, not necessarily as the end goal.
Wow, that's great. Really understanding the key differences there. And so the big kind of topic, especially in our space today, for anyone working in cloud, is going to be, you got supply chain security, security trends, and really kind of looking where observability and monitoring can play a role there and help. And I really, for the panel today, I really thought it was interesting. The Forrester in their 2022 prediction said one of the things they're predicting next year is that 60% of security incidents will involve third parties. So I think for everybody as they close this year, that looking towards like what should we be doing with monitoring, and especially or in parallel with observability for next year. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think we should keep this patterns. So we, for example, first of all, when we are providing our customers with the new, for example, landing zone, they should, of course, include a lot of option of observability providers. So they can be the native cloud provider, that can be also other as third party and other companies. So it's at least it should be selectable from 1 to 3 to 5. That yeah, but still I think we need to stick with the best practices for monitoring and observability, and this is the next trend, I think. So,
yeah, thanks, Boris. Again, so with companies like growing their workloads like rapidly in multi-cluster, multi-cloud environments, it becomes very crucial to have a centralized view of your systems, right? So furthermore, like if you want to have a sound observability strategy, you need to continuously like profile your applications and like collect a considerable volume of data 24/7. So hence it would like help if you had like robust tooling to make sense of the high volume of like logs, metrics, traces, which your applications kind of generate. So I hope observability is provided to the teams as a platform offering and not something which they have to kind of build and maintain themselves. And when it comes to security, as Blake you shared, and KubeCon, we heard a lot of like cloud native security topics. I believe supply chain security was one of them. Shift left security strategy was one more thing, and then injecting security into your CI/CD pipeline. I guess it becomes very critical as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's more and more tooling that will automatically look at your code base to find issues, particularly indeed in dependency tracking. Too often, I see that software systems are not being updated, or that if you have multiple microservices, that you do an update on one of them, but your dependencies should probably update also those that haven't themselves received updates. So continuous updates there, but especially also monitoring these things clearly. I would add also things like certificates monitoring. It's an often forgotten thing, and one of the issues this year, for example, was the expiry of the root certificate in Let's Encrypt. We also noticed this here at Netdata. Those are things that you can catch early on, and we should instill those processes in each and every company.
Wow.
Actually, I'm sorry for interruption. Yeah, I agree with this. It's sometimes can be a massive issue with the certificates when it's expiring. Then you have to spend a lot of time to really find the date, find proper certificate update, especially when you are building your infrastructure based on Kubernetes, and they all based on certificates. So it's it can be pain and such.
Yeah, indeed, containers that haven't been updated themselves because the base system worked for your service, and then you forgot to update the certificate change there. That's a major issue.
Okay, great. And so one thing before we move on to just talking about like best practices with observability for the panel, as you think about it, do you have any interesting stories around past companies or things that you can actually share, interesting, illuminating stories and from the trenches and working with observability? Maybe it was a fail, maybe it was a success that you want to share with our audience.
Yeah, I think I can share some quick story. When we built with my team, we built some observability, or I would say monitoring infrastructure for Kubernetes environment. It was it's modern, based on microservices. So yeah, and we decided to create some ping service. Basically, this service is actually the simple. It should just say send the ping and receive the pong back. So basically the microservice is up and running. And then we build it. We found the provider, found the tool, we send it, then we basically start testing it and just went home. In the morning, we received a lot of emails that our staging system doesn't work, basically, because it was detected that our system also detected that there was a DDoS attack. And we start looking who can do this DDoS attack, why? And we actually spent a few hours to understand that it basically our servers did this. So, but hopefully it was blocked by also the monitoring tool that we choose. So we kind of did the loading test and also security test at once and monitoring tests. So it was funny, but this is the anti-pattern, so you should kind of be careful with the tooling as well, so it can bring your system put down.
Yeah, I recollect an event where we built a great, I would say, observability platform, where we had a lot of automation, but the product release was kind of slated the week before a long weekend, and I think there was kind of a blip within our thresholds which we had set up for our alerts, and kind of that went crazy throughout the weekend. Like it kind of piled up so much of additional noise. Like it was like email alerts. We are sending some other notification through other channels. So yeah, that was quite fun. Like trying to figure out okay, what went wrong and kind of fixing that. And it all happened over a long weekend where we had less availability from the team. So yeah. Pretty fun. So kind of very important to do the observability the right way, right?
Yeah, one of my stories is a bit too much enthusiasm in adding instrumentation, so I had been setting up logging, structured logging in a company, and one of our developers was so happy with this that he added his own metrics, but forgot that if you, for example, put in the customer ID as a key rather than as a value, that basically blows up your entire metric naming system. So we had many hundreds of thousands of customers with requests coming in, and for each of them, a new set of metrics would be created, resulting in a total overload of the backend metric store with no availability for retrieving any metrics. So that was a lesson in how you should, look into the cardinality of the metrics you create, and what kind of results that has.
Wow, those are some great stories. And before, we're not even at the Q&A, but we already got a great question in. So before jumping into this kind of hits on best practices as well. So for the companies looking to get into observability in terms of best practices and what they should do, this kind of question hits on it. So I'll put it up on the screen. So Yao asked, what streams should part of the observability strategy, logs, metrics, et cetera, be? So these are kind of these, like, if we're going to do it as a company, what are some of those things we should do? And then with their question on specifically on streams being part of that strategy.
I think they also should not only gather the logs and metrics, they should also include alerts. And in terms of best practices, the system and components should only log and gather only valuable data, because it always in the system that for example, developers, they put into the logs everything they have, so like warnings, text messages, and so on and so forth. So it should be gathered only important information. Otherwise, you will spam your observability and monitoring system. So this is, I think, that should be.
Yeah, I agree with Boris here. Like I visualize observability. Like again, there are three pillars of observability, as they say. Like logs is one of them, metrics, and then traces, and then you need to have a sound alerting strategy as well. So kind of yeah, like whenever there are issues, you need to have the combination of all these metrics, logs, and traces to kind of figure out what the root cause of your outage or performance issues are.
Yep. I think I agree. When I talk about logs, I'm not just interested in just long lines of text. I'm interested in structured logging, particularly the ability to have separate fields that you can slice and dice the data with without having to do regular expressing, parsing, when searching, things like that. And what I also think is very important is that you include events from things that you do yourself. For example, deployments. Put in an event into your system every time you do a deployment. That greatly helps you identify issues. You can plot them on on top of a graph. That is also very useful to have. And I would add that instrumentation of your services should be core to what you do. It should be part of your development process. So in the design phase, what are the business metrics that I want to get out of this feature? In the development phase, just like you are used to building unit tests and integration tests, the monitoring of that thing should be included and be evaluated before you merge it. Those would be my top ones.
Great question. Oh, go ahead, Samir.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing which just came to my mind. So having a service map or a kind of a service topology diagram for your entire landscape, that's as well very beneficial when we are looking at trying to investigate any issues.
Yeah, and I would say that everything in your infrastructure, whether that's a service or a host or whatever, they should at least have one metric. If you use, for example, Prometheus to pull metrics, they should at least alert, give you their upness. And if you're pushing metrics like with Statsd, have a regular, watchdog kind of metric, so that you at least know all the moving bits in your infrastructure.
Wow. I think we did a great response. We got away from them. So thanks for that great question coming in for our first ever live show. Great to see that. Is there any other best practices or maybe a tip? So your friend calls you up, hey Ralph, hey Samir, we're looking to get into observability. We've heard of other companies that thought they implemented it right, but went astray. So there's like one or two tips there for like putting something in place is great, but the implementation, like you can often go wrong, and you don't want to get that call on the weekend or overnight, like when something's going wrong. So do you have like one or two like sort of nuggets or tips that you would tell somebody that's about to get started implementing it?
I think first of all, what you should do is also automate the deployment of your, observability platform. So when you're changing something, for example, in YAML files or in metrics, it should be also automated, that you can easily run your pipelines and update it and see. So it's also when it's, I think it's, in my point of view, it's important thing that's.
Yeah. I would say try to start out with monitoring solutions and observability tools that can do something for you out of the box those tools or some other tools, but at least have some kind of observability in your infrastructure, so that when you go tuning your services, your database or whatever, you can at least have some things to look at to see if it has any effect. If you do requests, for example, look at the latency distribution before you start optimizing your queries, and then see what the effects are and when you need to stop. For the 80/20 thing, and move on.
Again, I don't want to mention the same thing, but one thing which comes to my mind is, like, every company is in a different stage on their cloud native journey. So as they are starting with that, having a close collaboration between the development and operation team, kind of focusing on, okay, what are the workflows that needs to be automated? What are the tools which we need to use for all our observability? And basically discussing what are the current pain points, right? And then help create kind of an observability driven DevOps culture in your company. I guess that's very important as well.
Yeah, fully agreed. I would add that observability is not just for developers or for the operations people in your company. I have an example. I worked for a company where we were building a messaging and voice calling application, and we collected metrics on call setup and on messages being exchanged. And this information was not just used for us to see if our software was doing well, but it was also used by support to help individual users figure out why their calls weren't working. But we also used them as business metrics, so that people at the top of your company can just see, okay, well, this is the amount of calls that we put through this month. There's a trend there. So many parts of the business can benefit from having good observability setup.
All right, that's a great insight. So we've got some great friends out there that got some great advice there. So if you're looking to get started, great to hear that feedback. So we'll open it up now for that. We've already taken one question. So if you're with us live, you have a topic that we missed today or a question, you've got an all-star industry expert panel today right here ready to answer it or to speak to it. So just put it into the chat if there's something you want us to talk about, and we'll be glad to answer it. It's our first one, so it's amazing to see we've already got one question in. So we'll see if a question comes in. Got some people from the Tampa, from another person from the Netherlands joining us. Very cool. If you have a question for the panel, put it in. So I've got a question for everyone. So it's kind of like we're at the end of the year, so now everybody's asking about 2022 trends. We heard about the Forrester one. So putting your Forrester hat on, what observability and monitoring trends from your perspective will be hot in 2022? And at all those buzz and stuff, the trends that are going to be going on, what's the one that, in your opinion and perspective, that companies should be paying to the most? We're going to have lots of trends, but what should companies really dial in on and focus in on?
If I may start, I think opinionated tooling. So not just randomly looking at metrics, but having insight in what individual metrics actually mean, not just what their unit is, but understanding that something is throughput of bytes for data packets, or latency for HTTP requests, and then providing an interface into that directly, so you don't have to figure out what the best type of graph is for that particular metric. It will just come. I think that is going to be a good trend, combined with machine learning to top it off with in terms of alerting.
Yeah, I can only add to this. So I completely agree with this option. Also, I really think that the next topic is choosing the one product that provides you not only the UI, but also the agents, infrastructure, so everything included. It should be everything inside. When you can set up it and use it, so you may not spend time to set up the UI and then set up agents, then connect it with each other. So it's also really important, especially in time.
Yeah, it's a good question, Blake, again, which brings in a lot of thoughts. But I feel like in 2022, we'll continue to see like artificial intelligence, machine learning, like Rolf mentioned, like hopefully they will make it easier kind of to analyze these large volume of logs, metrics, traces, right? And kind of give some more intelligence into the observability platform. I also see like, hey, how can you standardize this collection of the telemetry data, right? Making observability kind of maybe standardize it across different data sources, say pipelines, platforms, and basically, end of the day, it should be easy for teams who are kind of want to look at their application. So we just focus on building a central pane of glass to monitor your full stack application. Hopefully, we make a lot of good progress there in 22, and yeah, I'm excited to see what the open source community and a lot of other participating companies are working towards.
Totally. I think that the initiatives like Open Telemetry and associated projects there for standardization of how you exchange metrics, logs, traces is a great starting point for many people to add that telemetry to their services, and the fact that they also offer standardized SDKs. Without having to think, how can I implement this myself with the existing base tooling is a great help.
Yeah, this is also I wanted to mention about this open telemetry. It's a really cool initiative. So this is, I think, the future.
Excellent. So if you're listening, watching us live, whatever you're doing, out running, cooking dinner, cooking breakfast, you can throw that question into the chat, or if you have a topic, definitely put it there. Also wanted to give a shout out. They didn't know I was going to do it, but a huge congratulations to Samir, one of the first to get the KCNA certification. It's something I want to like start on. Samir's already there. He just got it. So like a huge round of applause.
Thanks, Blake. Yeah, that was fun. You need to jump onto that boat now. Yeah.
It only took you 8,000 hours to study and do it, right?
No, not at all.
Very, very cool. It was definitely great to have everybody up here. We've got people from Ireland as well that joined us today. So it's really, really exciting. So for the audience today, we covered a lot of ground, a lot of topics. If there's something you want us to see, definitely get over to the Netdata community. Let us know what we can do there. As we wrap up today, just wanted to quickly go through Samir, Boris, and Ralph. Any kind of final thoughts on observability that you want to impart as people go? Or say, okay, we watched this panel, we're going out into the world. Any sort of like Braveheart speech or something you want to just impart with them here today? Summary. Someone from Austria as well joining. This is amazing. So anything, your final like victory speech, or get everybody excited, because observability monitoring is what you want to do. None of us want to be like on the evening news talking about like where we had an outage or something went wrong, right? So these are definitely critical things to talk about. So we'll turn it over for everybody there for your final thoughts. And then I will do a quick sneak peek at our next Netdata Cloud Show.
My 2 cents will be like, if you're starting with your observability journey, just take small steps. don't be kind of afraid of the initial failures. I would say it does take time to kind of build a strong observability strategy across your platform, where you need to look into multiple things like adjust SLAs, thresholds, controlling what all metrics you're reading. So it does take time. It's a gradual process. So just take small steps, and there are a lot of useful resources which are available in the internet. So make full use of that. There are a lot of good experts. Reach out to them. So yeah, that should be it.
Yeah, I can join Samir with this. Also, I can add. So first of all, it's important is to document, talk with your team, ask them to gather all requirements according to observability, and then the second one is tools. So tools for monitoring is really important.
I would say check every now and then whether that graph that you've created for a particular metric is not lying to you. I've built many dashboards over the years, and one of the things that I recently ran into again was I used a histogram to track latency, and I was seeing these spikes in the graphs of the percentiles on that histogram until I've figured out, oh wait, these buckets there are way too wide. So the spikes are not actually spikes. This is just a random fluctuation just over the threshold. So evaluate that every now and then, whether the assumptions that you had were correct, and instrument all the things.
Awesome. And we couldn't end on that note. So we actually have a question from Ralph, a different Ralph that's perfect for Ralph. So in the chat, we've got Ralph, I believe from Austria, who talks about using Netdata. And so I'll put that on the screen. But Ralph has a question that we can throw over to Ralph. So it's like the universe aligned for the Ralphs to get the stage and presence today. So Ralph, we've got a question for you from Ralph, but a different Ralph.
Is there a possibility to reconnect the agents that I've set up? Yes, you can. There is an option that allows you to reclaim an agent. And I'm not sure if there's a possibility to add some notes somewhere to this, but I can refer to some documentation at a later point to show you how that's done.
Great, yeah, definitely want to follow up with that. So thanks Ralph for answering the question from Ralph. So that's pretty good. And then we get a question. We'll get this for Jenny, and then I'll do the sneak peek for next week. So Jenny out of Florida says, how many different tools and types do you use for observability? Anyone want to take that?
First tool, I think it's what I'm currently using everywhere. It's a Grafana plus Prometheus. Yeah, it's. I think the next tool which I will try to use is Netdata, and the third tool is Datadog. So if I properly get the question, so it's now the most popular ones.
Yeah, again, depending upon where you're deploying your application, is it on the cloud? Is it on-prem? What is kind of the footprint of your application? The tools will kind of differ. I would say there are so many options available. If you look at the cloud native space, we have a lot of open source tools around observability. Prometheus, Grafana kind of leads the way on the metric space, whereas you have Jaeger for the tracing. So again, it's a huge list, I would say, but you just need to figure out which tool kind of gives you the most benefit. You don't want to have like a spread of like 10, 15 tools, which kind of does overlapping functions. maybe look at tools which can help you provide a central plane of glass to look at all your services.
Yep, I have to agree there. Unfortunately, I haven't found the golden bullet yet. That there are many solutions with different angles, and there's a lot of development here. If you are in a cloud infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure themselves will also offer you a lot of tooling around this that are great to begin with. It might be limiting when you really get into things, I would guess that you always end up with some kind of hybrid or at least interconnecting monitoring solutions that integrate data from themselves. As an example, Netdata can incur metrics from StatsD or Prometheus, or export them again to other systems, so you can look at your data in a different way. And I think that is very useful.
Excellent. So great to get some of these questions in and answered. Thanks to the panel. I'm going to just really quickly, before we wrap up, give a quick sneak peek for our next Netdata Cloud event. So here we go. You'll get a quick teaser for it. So we will be back live. Enjoy your holiday time from all of us at Netdata. To you, your family, coworkers, thanks so much for being a part of us in 2021. Can't wait for you to join us with our second show to kick off next year. We're going to be having an EBPF panel. We've got some staff that are experts in this. We'll be bringing in industry experts for that. We've got a full agenda of amazing shows and events and activities and meetups happening next year. So happy to have you as part of this. So definitely have a great, happy holidays. Happy New Year. Can't wait to see everybody next year. Thanks again today to Samir, to Boris, and a huge shout out to Ralph on our team for being a part of this. You're a part of our very first live show here at Netdata. Thanks for making it happen. Have a great rest of your Thursday, great rest of your week. Goodbye, everybody. This is Blake from Netdata.